Renters' Rights Bill is being sold as a huge win for tenants. More security, better rights, and just overall stronger protections. But what about if it backfires? Now, hear me out. We're already seeing signs of fewer available homes, rent increases, but most of all, more legal action in the courts against tenants. In this video, I'm going to break it all down, but also make sure you stay to the end, because I'm going to share with you as to when this is most likely to take effect, whether you're a landlord or a tenant. Stay ahead. The Renters' Rights Bill has just passed its third reading in the House of Lords, just before Parliament headed off for its summer break. Now, they're back on the 8th of September. Now, this is where we enter into the ping pong stage, where the House of Lords and the Commons go back and forth until they get the final wording. After that, it goes to royal assent to become law. But it won't take effect immediately. So make sure you stay tuned as to when we think that's going to happen. And here's something that doesn't get enough airtime, and that is a spike in the risk of county court judgments, CCJs, against tenants. Now, right now, under the current law, landlords can choose to serve Section 21, that is the so-called no-fault evictions, just to end the tenancies quietly. No finger pointing, no court cases, and certainly no CCJs. So when this bill becomes law and they abolish Section 21, well, instead landlords wanted to evict those tenants, remove those tenants from the property, they will need to highlight the specific reason for the proposed eviction. Now, this very likely in this new process is going to involve having a court order granted. And Ollie Sherlock from Good Lord says that if tenants allow themselves to fall into arrears with their landlord, it will catch up with them. Currently, when a Section 21 is used to evict a tenant, no further action is typically taken. However, the new rules means that far more cases could end up in court. And should this happen and some rental payments have been missed or withheld, tenants might find that a charge has been made against their name in the form of a CCJ. If they don't have the cash available to settle their debt quickly and in full, a CCJ could stay on their credit record for up to 6 years. This can be seriously damaging to credit scores, affecting their ability to secure everything from renting a new property, applying for a mortgage, or securing a mobile phone contract. Let me share with you a story. Meet John, an accidental landlord, owns one property, had the property rented out and things were running smoothly. He also works alongside having this property to meet all his financial obligations, but then suddenly the tenant stopped paying rent. And after 2 months of radio silence, despite him reaching out, he decided to take action. The best route? Section 21. Of course, the no-fault eviction notice. But after several months, and no need for a court battle and certainly not claiming to get those rent back, he got his property back. But here's the twist. The tenant gets away scot-free. No CCJs and nothing following him for 6 years. That's under the current system. That was the quickest route for John, at least. It took a few months, but he got there in the end. Under the new system, the tenant will almost certainly face court judgment that will follow them for years. And here is another potential unintended consequence from the Renters' Rights Bill, and that is the ban of the so-called rental bidding wars. That sounds like a good thing to tenants on the face of it. However, if we look in deeper, at the moment, landlords decide to put their rental properties on the market. Most of the times, they go around about low to mid-market value so that they can get enough people in and they can negotiate with those tenants, depending, of course, of the outcome that they may have. Now, under the new system, they can only negotiate downwards, not upwards. So what do you think is going to happen when they know that they may be able to leave money on the table? Well, no one likes to leave money on the table. So suddenly, landlords are going to go at the top market price, or dare I say, above market price. So if they have to negotiate or adjust, then they'll do so. Because at the moment, with the proposed Renters' Rights Bill, they cannot receive a penny more than what the property is advertised for. So is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Leave me a comment below. I'd be very keen to find out your views. As we go into the topic of pets, which, funny enough, proves to be very popular. Now, a lot of people find this bizarre, but as we go in deeper, we can understand the concerns of landlords with this particular topic. Now, I want to share with you a perfect example of unintended consequences. So before 2019, if tenants requested a pet, landlords will weigh up the risks involved, the financial risk, which usually is more maintenance, wear and tear, and so forth. So landlords who will want to consider this, they will say, well, hang on, what I would like then is a higher security deposit because the risks increase, right? Other landlords will say, well, hang on, I want a cleaner to be in there every month to make sure that things don't escalate and build up. Dog hairs, cat hairs, whatever that may be, especially with carpets. Came 2019 with previous government, and what they had and what they put in place was a tenant fee ban, which meant that landlords will no longer be able to charge a fee to tenants, or agents won't be able to charge tenants. Now, this included, but not exclusively, charging tenants for referencing, which was very common and typical, and also an admin fee, and anything else that may be seen as a fee. On top of that, they also limited security deposit to 5 weeks. Now, this had an effect on the overall market. In fact, there's evidence that this contributed to the rent increase that we've seen in recent years, which has been more than 30%, in some places almost 40%. Now, why is this important within the pet topic? Well, landlords now, where they're requested to have a pet, now suddenly they can't say, well, you can have a pet, but only if we increase the deposit. That's no longer allowed. And they're no longer allowed to say, well, you can have a pet, but we have a cleaner every month. That's going to be seen as a fee. So a lot of landlords decided, well, you know what, if I cannot mitigate that risk, then it's a straight no. And I think that's why pet requests has been such a big thing during recent years, because I think we've seen more landlords say no to pets because they cannot mitigate that. Now, with the new law coming into place, landlords will not be able to say no. Of course, depending on things like the head lease and other risk factors that may be involved. As an example, if you have a 50-kilo Rottweiler and you're living in a 250 square feet studio flat, then that's a reasonable request to turn down. The unintended consequences this time round is going to be that landlords are going to increase rents to be able to factor in that increase in wear and tear, a higher cost of maintenance and risk of damage. But that's not only going to impact tenants with pets once again, it's going to have an impact on the overall market. Diving into a more technical part of the Renters' Rights Bill, we look at Ground 1A, which allows landlords to evict their tenants as long as they're going to sell their property. Which seems a good thing for the landlord, because if they're selling, it could be for financial reasons, financial strains, you name it. The tenant then can go off and find another accommodation. Fair enough. The challenge is that with this Renters' Rights Bill, it will bar the landlord from renting again if they fail to sell their properties. In different regions of the UK, the market can shift in different ways. It could be a buyer market, a seller market. Now in London, more often than not, in certain regions, it could take months to sell a property, and sometimes they don't even sell. In fact, there's a good percentage of properties that do not go on to sell. Suddenly we have the government restricting an empty property that can go into the rental market, where we have a rental crisis, a lack of properties. They're not allowing them to put the property back on the rental market for a period of 12 months. So if they evict the tenant, they go on to sell the properties after 3-4 months, they are unable to sell it, that property has to sit empty for a period of 12 months. That is absolutely crazy. And as an unintended consequence, of course, less supply, which we have now, that's going to equal higher rents. So when can we expect this bill to become law? Well, as I said, on the 8th of September, everything starts in motion again. And we expect it to take an effect, the law to actually be implemented at some point in spring in 2026. On the bigger picture, what can we see? Well, this bill is packed with good intentions for tenants. Not so much for landlords, although there are some good things there for landlords, even though you may not think it. What we can expect is fewer available homes, rent increases, and the legal process is certainly going to be more challenging, both for landlords but also tenants. Now, do subscribe to this channel so you keep up to date.